I am Nicole Petrowski, MDA's Community Education Specialist, and we appreciate you joining us tonight, and we're so excited to share this new discussion format with you all. This event is part of our larger MDA Engage series with disease-specific symposia, community education seminars, and community webinars. Here's a list of what we have coming up, and this goes into the fall. You can visit mda.org under the Community Education heading, and you will see information on all of our Engage offerings and learn how you can register and attend. We encourage those of you who are interested in our mission, whether you have a diagnosis that falls under our MDA umbrella, such as CMT, or if you are a parent, guardian, or a loved one of someone who does, to please join our organization. You'll become part of a community of families, researchers, physicians, and advocates who are helping children and adults live longer and grow stronger. You will stay up to date with the latest information and education to help with your family stay informed in the neuromuscular community. And if you already are part of our organization and would like to connect with other CMT members in our organization, feel free to email the National Connections Program to the email you see on the slide. Our National Connections Program is new, and we are helping members of the neuromuscular community build bonds with one another. So anyone in the community is welcome to join this program, and participants can specify that they're open to being connected to others in the MDA community. And I wanted to go over just a few housekeeping items before we begin tonight. For those of you joining the event live, please know all phone lines have been muted. Please also make sure that the volume is adjusted so you can hear all of our panelists. If you have a question for one of our panelists or the moderator, please type those into the Q&A icon. If you hover over the bottom of your screen, a tray of icons will appear, and click on the Q&A icon to open that feature. Please note we will do our best to get to all questions as time allows. This is a 2-hour segment, so once we get conversation started, we will do our best to get to all of your questions. And feel free to use the chat feature as well. I just want to make sure everybody knows to click on all panelists and attendees when you type in your comment. Otherwise, the attendees won't see your comment. It'll just come to the panelists that can do that. And then finally, I'll be sending out a brief survey afterwards, and we would like to receive your feedback on what you heard today. We want to make sure what we're discussing is relevant, and we use your feedback to improve educational events. So thank you in advance for completing that. And now I would like to introduce our moderator for our CMT Family Panel, Christine Tardiff. She is a clinical social worker at Boston Children's Hospital in the Department of Neuroscience, where she has practiced for the past 16 years. Here, she supports families from all over the globe in navigating the myriad of concrete challenges as well as the uncertainty inherent in living with a neurological diagnosis. She provides ongoing psychosocial education to neurology residents and other staff, and through a curriculum she created to help providers be present to the practical and emotional complexities that families face. Christine is also the co-facilitator of Schwartz Rounds, which provides a forum for providers to discuss challenging situations in order to deepen compassion in working with patients and families. Prior to BCH, she worked at Lucile Packard Children's Hospital at Stanford, Beverly and Addison Gilbert Hospitals in Massachusetts, and conducted a private practice. She was named a Hero in the Fight by NAMI, which is the National Association of Mental Illness. And she's a staunch advocate for the underserved. Christine works to address issues of social inequities within the wider community. So, Christine, thank you so much for being with us today. I am going to stop talking, and I will go ahead and let you kick off our discussion and introduce our panelists.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Nicole, and thank you everyone for being here. It's truly an honor and a delight to be with all of you tonight. So as Nicole mentioned, for the next 2 hours, we'll be meeting our panelists and exploring their personal experiences with CMT and have you share your learnings and experiences as well. We look forward to having an open discussion on a variety of topics, including but not just care, treatment, trials, life hacks, and just ongoing management of the disease. We'll also be launching several polls throughout the conversation. So if you can, please participate in those as they will give you insights into you, our audience. And again, as Nicole mentioned, please feel free to type in your questions using the Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen. And you can also type in your comments or questions in the chat window. And we'll get to as many questions as time allows. So, and just putting aside the technicalities for one moment, I'd like to invite you all to join me in creating what we hope will be a safe space for thoughts and ideas to be shared. A space free of judgment, free of assumptions, one in which we're all ready to listen, to be present to each other, and to learn. Let's be witnesses to each other here in this space, to the challenges as well as to the hope inherent in each other's lives. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. So perhaps one by one, I'm going to call on you, and you can turn your camera on and unmute yourself. Well, we'll have a chance to dive deeper into your stories. To begin with, I'll ask just your name, your age, where you live. Are you an individual living with CMT, or are you a caregiver or guardian of someone with CMT? And when were you or your loved one diagnosed? So to start, perhaps Dylan, could we ask you to respond to those questions?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
First of all, thank you so much to everyone who is here, and thank you so much, Nicole, and our wonderful moderator, Christine. This is going to be fun. So my name is Dylan Gibson. I am 25 years old. I'm almost 26, and I live in a little town called Parsons, Tennessee. So I have to tell people I am in the middle of Nashville and Memphis. You come in the middle, there's Parsons. So just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm at. And I am not a caregiver, but I am someone who is living with CMT.
Thank you so much, Dylan.
And I was diagnosed when I was 16 years old. Sorry, I almost forgot that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca and Braden.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. I go by Becky, and this is Braden Tiernan. We're from Louisville, Kentucky. Braden is 13. He was diagnosed with CMT when he was 5. I am 46. I was diagnosed with CMT when I was in my 30s, as when we were trying to figure out where his came from. So I'm a caregiver and a person living with CMT.
Thank you, Becky and Braden. Caleb.
My name's Caleb. I'm from a small town which nobody knows of, but I'm from Casper, Wyoming. I'm 20 years old. I was diagnosed with CMT at the age of 3, I want to say, a little younger than 3. I'm not a caregiver. I just kind of take care of myself and live with my parents.
Thank you, Caleb.
The question.
Thank you for being here. Peyton.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peyton. I'm 22 years old, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. And I was diagnosed with CMT type 2E when I was 5.
Thank you. And if you've introduced yourself, you can keep your cameras on. How about that? Thank you. Will.
Hi, I am Will. I live in Ringgold, Georgia, just to the south of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I was diagnosed with Charcot-Marie-Tooth type 1F at the age of 9.
Thank you, Will. Melissa and Lily, last but not least.
Hi, I'm Melissa Ruta, and this is my daughter Lillian Ruta.
Hi.
And I'm 41 years old. Lily is 12. We live in Racine, Wisconsin, which is between Milwaukee and Chicago. There's some big names there. And I was diagnosed with CMT type 1A at the age of 4. And Lily was diagnosed through genetic testing at the age of 18 months.
Wonderful. Thank you all for being here and for being willing to share your stories. And as we noted before, so I'm going to ask a series of questions. If you feel called to respond, please do share your story. It could be a few words, it could be much more than that, whatever you feel called to share. If the question does not move you at all in any way, shape, or form, you don't have to respond to it. So this can be a very fluid conversation. So without further ado, let's dive into the questions. First and foremost, this is a general question, so feel free to go with this where you will. How would you describe living with CMT, and how does it affect your daily life? Lily.
Hi, so I have type 1A CMT, and so that affects my feet and my arms. So one thing that's very annoying for me is I always seem to like lose my balance and almost tip over sometimes, especially when I'm just standing up. Also, another thing that's hard for me is to get up. I have to use both my hands or something to hold on to so I can get up, and it just makes everything a little harder, you know. And it my hands I can't open some stuff like jars or just like anything like that. So yeah.
Thank you, Lily. Thanks for being the first to answer a question. That's very courageous of you.
To answer, I think Braden wants to answer.
I try not to let it get the best of me, but it's definitely more difficult at times. I'm in my wheelchair about half the time whenever I have to go to like grocery stores, to school. If I have to really do any mid or long walking, I definitely can't like open bottles or jars.
You wear your AFOs?
Yeah, I wear my AFOs. They're a little annoying at times. They rub up against my leg and are pretty loud. But yeah, I think that's like the hardest.
Yeah, I didn't really have symptoms for a while. I was a volunteer firefighter and a career paramedic up until a few years back, and so I really didn't start having symptoms until later on. I became immobile after having a aneurysm rupture, and that's when I started, with my lack of activity, is when I started seeing my symptoms of CMT. We kind of joke about the jars. If the guys aren't home, my husband and older sons, we may not get apple juice. It just may not happen.
Thank you for sharing. So the kids are the leaders in the questions here.
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
Before I turned 18, I wouldn't do anything kind of to sit around and play video games. I struggled with a lot of stuff, opening jars, bottles, cans, a lot telling temperatures. And then when I turned 18, I decided to get a job. Now I work at Qdoba, and I think the biggest problem I struggle with is asking for help from my coworkers, because I'm afraid to ask for help because I don't want them to think of me differently. Mm-hmm. And then it bothers me when people, like the customers, look at me different because the way I walk, the way I grab like the handles and the way I move around, it just kind of just ruins my self-esteem.
Thank you for sharing that, Caleb.
I would like to. Oh, Will, do you want to go first? Will, you want to go?
If you don't mind.
Go ahead, Will.
Okay, thank you so much. So for me, so I'm still mobile. Like I can still walk. It's just kind of a really big limp. And I guess sometimes it's kind of almost like a balancing act. It's like if you push too hard, then that tips the scale to a risk of fatigue or falling. And at the end of last school year, I actually wanted so badly to keep up with the pace of a crowd of students, I tripped over myself and busted my head open above my eye. And so that was really scary and kind of a wake-up call that being someone who lives with CMT, I need to kind of I need to kind of stick to what I know rather than trying to be normal for the sake of everybody else.
Thank you. Some good wisdom. Dylan.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I am so glad that you just get it. Okay. I come from a family that I'm like patient zero. I'm the first one to have CMT and nobody else has this. And so you guys just get it. And that's what like makes me happy because it's hard for me to say like, I'm having trouble with this jar, as so many of you have already said. And people are like, just open it. I'm like, I can't just open it. I can't just do that. And, and so I'm just so glad that you guys get it. And piggybacking off of what Caleb said, when people look at you, isn't that just the thing that people are always watching you because you walk different and you just you do little things differently. So I had a lady, we were at a restaurant and I was walking to my seat and she came up to my mother and her son unfortunately lost his legs and she was wanting to know if I had prosthetics because of the way I walked. And my mom said, oh no, he has CMT, he goes through this. And she goes, oh, okay, I just wanted to know. She just wanted to get some insight from our side of the tracks or on, what we go through. But it was just kind of funny, like people do see you, people notice you. And so, think positively, just if they are going to notice you, give them something to notice. Be happy, be full of life. And if they come up to you, then you just let them know. But yeah, people are going to watch and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Dylan, we're going to drink in your enthusiasm here. But if I could repeat, what you said, you're all surrounded by panelists and attendees. You're surrounded by people who get it. So I hope that does create a safe space for everybody. Peyton, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback off of everybody else too. I mean, I completely agree with everything, everything that you guys are saying, Lily getting up off the floor, the water bottles, everything, totally relate to you guys. I think it's an interesting question about how would you describe living with CMT? And I think, like you guys all described, it's super challenging and super hard sometimes. And I think those experiences are all extremely valid. And I also think that it can be really beautiful sometimes, I get to meet all of you guys and I get to, have some pretty cool conversations. And, I always think that CMT really, kind of informs my perspective in a lot of different ways. So I think it's a mixture of good and bad for sure. But yeah, I totally agree with you guys.
Peyton, thank you for sharing that aspect, that even such a challenging experience can be beautiful, and I think some people might be challenged by that statement. So I think that as we go deeper into our questions, I would invite you and any and all of you to maybe dig a little deeper into what that might mean for you, as well as the challenges, because it really sort of balances things out. Thank you for having the courage to share that. And just moving on, I mean, this next question is sort of connected to the last. And you might want to expound upon what you've already shared. What is one aspect of CMT that has the most significant impact upon your life? One that you wish you could improve, and why? Melissa.
I think right now for me, it's dealing with pain and chronic pain, and just finding ways to get a handle of that and able to stay active. Because when you're in pain, the last thing that you want to do is go on a walk, go on a bike. But we know how important those things are for those of us with CMT, staying active. But getting through that pain, pushing through injury, surgery, all those things that we do, it's tough. So I would like to find a way to manage that a little bit better, just for quality of life.
Can I also share? Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is like related, but can I say like something that like I had to like push through and that kind of like helped me to get kind of stronger, you know, but also something that I wish wouldn't happen. So I was at physical therapy, and I was on an elliptical, and I was trying to go fast as I can, you know, and be like other people, how they can go so fast on like treadmills or whatever like that. And my foot slipped and went and it caught in between the two wheels, and I sprained my ankle, and I'd never had any injury like that, and that was just kind of like Will said, a wake-up call, and it helped me to be like more aware of my surroundings, and like be like, I don't have to be like other kids because I'm me.
I'm taking that in. I know everyone else is as well. Thank you, Lily.
I think like what I need to get better with is like knowing my limits, like everybody else, because I fall like quite often and have to deal with that, and I'm quite stubborn at times. So with that, I try to not take a lesson from it, and I need to get better at that so I don't fall down as much, and I can like be able to walk more often and all that.
I think he tries to stay away from his wheelchair probably a little more than he should, because you know, there's the looks and the questions. A lot of people like at school, they're confused as to why he can walk sometimes and why sometimes has to be in his wheelchair. You know, I think a lot of times when they are not able to physically see an injury, they're confused by it. I think that's a big reason why he pushes himself a lot harder than he probably should. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle in our audience is asking our panelists, do you ever notice any challenges with cognitive speaking, maybe brain freeze, formulating words, or speaking backwards?
I know
Absolutely.
with some auditory processing, like for me in a noisy background, I'm one of those people that has to study like in silence. So I think those are kind of related. I don't notice it with my speech so much, but just with my auditory processing of information, I do need things to not be happening so much in the background. And I know that hearing can be affected you know, with type 1A. I'm not sure about with the other types, so.
Yeah, I have type 2E and I do have hearing loss. So that was the first thing that kind of came to mind too, is that I definitely, you know, will struggle with that at some points. But I don't know if I've noticed like if that's related like cognitively, but just, you know, trying to process speech like you were saying with the hearing loss for sure can be challenging. Yeah.
I think we might have another panelist trying to join us. In the meantime, does anyone else have any comment upon that question in terms of one aspect of CMT that has truly impacted you? Will?
So for me, mine is kind of something that Lily said earlier, is that it's really frustrating sometimes when you can just be either standing or walking and then just boom, you just lose your balance. And it's honestly, it can be really scary because it's like you want so badly not to fall, but then at the same time you are trying in your mind to think like, what do I need to do? Where can I position myself where I'm not going to fall? Where can I, like, how can I make sure that I don't fall when that happens? And how can I keep it from happening? And it is a very frustrating aspect that I wish that I could fix, because it does get pretty frustrating when it just happens randomly.
Thank you, Will. And Dylan?
I am forever going after Will because he always sparks my mind. He always makes me think about something. He's got it right. It makes you kind of fearful in a way. That's why when people are like, "Hey, do you want to hold my baby?" I say, "No," because I'm afraid I'm gonna drop that baby, and I don't want to do that. So you hold on to your baby, sir. Let me sit down first, and then I'll hold your baby. And then it makes me think of Caleb out here working at Qdoba. Bro, are you dropping the beans? Are you dropping someone's order? I need to know these things. I'm curious because we do think about that. I have to be cognizant about, like, can I grab a wall? Can I hold on to a rail? You know, we all go through that. So I'm so glad that Will said it, because we have to be very meticulous. I told my wife, because she asked, you know, about me walking. I said, I'm a walking calculator. I gotta look, that rock, that little pebble that someone's gonna step on, that's gonna topple me over. I gotta watch out for that guy. Okay, so I gotta be careful there. It's just I'm a processing computer. I gotta be careful, and you're always just looking out for different things. So that's just what it is. That's how we are.
Thank you, Dylan. Before we move on, I want to give a warm welcome to Christina, who joined us. I think she had technical difficulties before, so.
Oh yes, sorry about that. Yes, I apologize greatly.
No, we're very glad you made it in. Could you just briefly introduce yourself and give your full name and your age, where you live?
Sure.
Perhaps when you were diagnosed.
Sure. My name is Christina Fisher. I currently reside in Surprise, Arizona. Yes, it's a real city. We actually have Goodyear too, so there's some odd ducks here. I was diagnosed officially at 45 after the genetic testing. I'm originally from California, and I'm just glad to be with a whole bunch of fellow CMTers to be supportive and help, and here to share everything. So hopefully we can help the next generation and our friends literally on the call right now. And I have CMT 1A.
Thank you so much, Christina. Glad you made it through the tech barriers. I would like to just acknowledge one comment in the chat, which I'm going to throw out to all of you because I think it's significant. Someone is mentioning when in the middle school experience, one of the, I would wager to say one of the most horrible time periods of someone's life. But he mentions the other kids were pretty nasty because of his inability to run or do other physical activities. Has anyone else faced similar situations in middle school? Okay, maybe we should ask who hasn't. It sounds like a pretty common experience.
Can I add on to that real quick?
Okay, Caleb?
Yeah.
So, sorry.
With me, it wasn't, the kids were the problem. Was, you know, they would look at me, make fun of me, kind of say nasty things to me. But I think the biggest problem I had, it wasn't the students. I think it was the teachers, because the teachers would kind of make snarl comments, and I would know it because I can hear them, but they would act like I couldn't hear them because my muscles don't work, so they think my ear muscles would not work.
I definitely think now I'm a teacher. I'm a special education teacher, but looking back on my school's experience in a parochial school, I didn't tell anybody that I had a disability. I didn't tell anybody that I had Charcot-Marie-Tooth. I just kind of wanted to assimilate and not stand out, and not to my parents' fault, but there wasn't a lot of information back then too, as you know. Now we have a lot more information with the MDA, supporting research, putting some of that like public information out there so that we can share that. And just the internet itself has opened so many different avenues to be able to share information with teachers, with classmates. And I've just really tried to empower Lily. She used to attend the school that I worked at, and every year we would come in. We had someone from the MDA come in and just talk to the class and just make it a very open dialogue about, you know, why are we wearing braces? What can my friends do to be helpful for me? What are some things that might be hard for me to do? And we just kind of put it out there. She is at a new school this last year, and we haven't done that. And it is a private school, whereas we were in public schools and we took advantage of an IEP and then moved to a 504 plan, which is something I'm sure we'll get into, like the educational challenges. But yeah, middle school for right now, we just got a note from the doctor and said, we're not doing gym. We'll do some extra art or music. And luckily we have that flexibility with this school, but middle school, definitely kids are already going through a lot. So compound that with CMT, it becomes a pretty big challenge.
Can I also, so I feel like I'm going in my second year of middle school. I haven't really had any problems. It was more of elementary school for me. I mean, there's the occasional, why are you going in the elevator or stuff like that. But people are pretty polite at my school. And in elementary school, kids, it was also I remember this one time my teacher, might have been a substitute, but we had like these stations where you do like different sports or whatever, and I could physically not like do any of them, and I was like scared that I was gonna fall or something, and my teacher went, you know, you have to do one of those, right? And then I was like really confused, and she made me do push-ups, and I was like in front of the whole class, and I was like, okay. And also like somebody said, Dominic said in the chat, a gym teacher pointed me out about getting 1% on the national physical fitness test. I've also had, it's like in elementary school, it's called like the Pacergram test or whatever. And I'd always be like the last one to cross it, and people would look at me and stare at me, and I'd be like, I have CMT. And yeah, kids are just kind of rude, especially like the younger kids that don't know about CMT or disabilities. So yeah.
Thank you, Lily. I mean, it sounds like kids as well as maybe some really uneducated teachers as well. And I think this question is striking a big chord with our audience as well, because it sounds like a very common yet unfortunate experience. And I would add the question, how do you move through these experiences? What do you do when you have them? How do you cope? Because it really seems appropriate to call it traumatic. Yes, Will.
So for me, getting past the experiences is kind of something to the effect of what Dylan said. Like, positivity is the most important thing with having CMT, because you can't look at the bad side. If you look at the bad side, it's going to be a lot worse than if you focus on positivity. Because I've had a teacher before. I'm not gonna get into specifics, but I've had a teacher before who basically told other kids in the class, "Don't help him. He can do whatever you can do." And basically, kids would get in trouble if they tried to help me. And then there was another teacher that same year who told me, like she did not follow my IEP, and we had to bring it up multiple times because I guess she couldn't wrap it around her finger that, there are certain things I can't do. There's things that I need help with, and it was frustrating, but I just had to use positivity to get past that, because that's most of what you can do.
Braden, I'm so sorry I cut you off before. Yes.
Oh, it's okay. So on to the question. I think I've had to deal with teachers and students. Luckily, I have an amazing support system, and I have 2 older brothers, so I'm used to getting made fun of and picked on. So I was able to. At one point, I didn't mean to be so mean, but after somebody started to make fun of me, I made them cry. But I didn't mean to be so mean. I just guess hit them in the wrong spot, and I invented dance roasting, I guess, because I kind of made fun of him while dancing because I was getting annoyed. But I kind of cope with it with whenever I get home, I might make fun of them behind their back. Kind of, that's not the best way to handle it, but because I understand they probably deal with a lot of struggles also. That's one of the biggest reasons of bullying, that and ignorance. So I like to try to understand. If I initially make fun of them, then I try to understand, and I've actually became close friends with somebody that made fun of me, because it really just took some explaining to, and they apologized and all that.
We've dealt with teachers. One in particular was a new PE teacher who decided that the class had not behaved the way that they should have, and was making them do flanks for X amount of time as punishment.
15, 30 minutes.
So that's when I come in. I usually try to let him handle most things by himself, but things like that, that's not punishment for a child with CMT. That's pretty much torture.
Oh, we just lost you, Becky. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry about that. That's when I usually will step in. But I think once we have a pretty big public school system here, and I think once you're named as a trouble parent or a trouble child, everybody kind of watches out for you. So I think they've learned that when it comes to him, I'll go vicious mama bear mode. And if he's not being treated fairly or the way he should or by his IEP, that I will step up. And since then, and there was a couple of other things, again, with the whole, whether he's in a wheelchair or not, being field trips, making sure that he's able to go on them was an issue. They wouldn't make accommodations for him. And after that, they do a pretty good job. Now they'll contact me when there's a problem or before they see a problem. So I think having to be his advocate is very important. I know who to talk to at the school, and I keep his therapist in school in the loop on what's going on with him, any changes physically or anything like that. I think that's the best way that I've been able to deal with him and his changes with his CMT.
Thank you, Becky. And Braden, I hope you're seeing in the chat that someone is saying you sound like a really together person.
Thanks.
Yeah, Braden, I wish I had your confidence.
This has been a really delicate question, and thank you for those who have answered it with such courage. Moving on, a little more of a practical question in terms of what treatments have helped alleviate your symptoms, if any. Is there anything you could share? And specifically, maybe to get thoughts rolling, anything to say about AFOs or adaptive shoes or anything in particular that has really helped you? Peyton, yes.
Yeah, so I would say a few different things have been really helpful. I do wear AFOs, and I've been supposed to wear AFOs since I was like really little, but I just never would growing up because I just did not like them at all. They were hot, they were like uncomfortable, they hurt my feet. And so I finally found one that I really like, and those have just made a world of a difference and has allowed me to kind of participate in life in the way that I want. Another thing is just PT has been amazing. I also work with an adaptive trainer, like personal trainer, once a week through a local organization, and that's helped a ton just build muscle that I can still build and has helped me function a lot better. And yeah, I would say those three things. I did have like foot surgery a few years ago, which was really helpful too. So yeah, I would say, you know, just kind of look around at what the options are. There's so many things out there, and you know, what works for me might not work for somebody else, but just give them a try and try to find whatever works for you.
Thank you. Lily.
Yeah, I do occupational therapy and also physical therapy, and I have like an adaptive bike that has 3 wheels, and it's like really easy for me to maneuver with and stuff. So also I do meditation and like stretch and stuff and do yoga. So
Wonderful, thank you. So, Christina, I know you had something to share. Oh, can you unmute yourself?
So it's one of those days. Just going back to what Peyton said about the AFOs, you really have to search out the kind that you need, not just for your ability and for the return on your investment on your energy, which will really help you. There are so many out there now, from the NeuroSpring to the, as Peyton said, the more archaic one, which is what I actually have, which is all plastic. To there are, I think at least, I last read like 25 different ones, some that go actually on the outside of your foot versus actually in your shoe that can help you if you have any kind of foot problems. And if you can get into a chat group and try to talk to people in your area, they can maybe find an orthopedic person near you that can help you get the best fit for yourself. But the one thing also is, once you get them, please go back to whoever your specialist is and make sure that you're getting them checked yearly and that you check for your care of your feet so you don't get sores and things like that, because we can't always feel them or know that they're there. So if you can't do that, make sure your caretakers also looking at that, because things like that can be detrimental to people with CMT. And we get so caught up in the day-to-day that sometimes we forget about that self-care of the foot that's at the bottom. So I just wanted to just put that out there also.
Thank you so much, Christina. I just want to briefly thank you for those who responded to the poll. So we have some results in for the question, what treatments do you use to help with self-care? The big winner is 71% safe physical exercise, followed by 67% splint and bracing devices, followed by 48% stretching therapies. Pain management comes in at 19%, meditation at 14%, and acupuncture at 5%. And if I can just read, I love this comment from Michael Field in the chat. To the panelists who are looking forward to a life with CMT, and for all attendees, I take it, I am a 70-year-old diagnosed with CMT, type 1A, 40 years ago, and want to assure you, you will have a complete life. I've had a career, and I'm now living in active retirement. My AFOs, ankle braces, and walking sticks keep me going. I swim every day. I'm in 2 choral groups. Do what you can each day. The mystery pains will come and will go, but you can go on doing what you can. Thank you, Michael. Do any more of our panelists want to respond to that question about treatment?
I just wanted to talk about the AFOs. Like Christina said, it's been ever changing. So there's never, like, I wouldn't say, you know, like for example, these are Lily's AFOs right now. These probably wouldn't work for me. My dad also has CMT, as well as my siblings. My dad has different type of carbon fiber AFOs, but we've had SMOs, we've had the ones that need to be fully casted. It just depends on your individual situation. So I would say definitely like seeking out an orthotist that really understands your feet and being able to make frequent adjustments to those braces, because they will need that. You know, if anyone's ever had them, you know, you'll need them adjusted. So don't make your orthotist appointment 2 hours away. We've learned that lesson.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, Braden stepped out, but we've had all types of different AFOs, but the ones that she showed a while ago, that's pretty much what he has now, and they seem to work the best. And then I guess probably about 2 years ago, he had surgery to stretch his hamstrings, and that helped a whole lot. And believe it or not, when COVID struck and kids weren't going to school, he was approaching needing to have that surgery again. But with being able to be out of his wheelchair and stretch during the day instead of being in his chair all day, it really helped. It helped the pain. His legs are a whole lot better. He's actually he plateaued in physical therapy, so he's on a break right now, but we keep him active. He plays wheelchair basketball, and just things that we've tried to find things that are in his comfort zone that helps him. And I didn't mention earlier, but I have a 17-year-old son that has CMT, but you wouldn't know it. He plays high school sports. He's very active. I think the biggest part with him, with his diagnosis, was psychologically seeing his brother with all the things that he's going through. And he was in middle school when he was diagnosed, and he was for sure his life was over. But the more he keeps active, the more he holds it at bay, I guess, but he's doing really good. So with him, just physical activity is what has really kept him going.
Thank you, everybody. So the next question is a big one. And I think, you know, we started talking about it a little bit ago in terms of relating to people. But I would ask, how has CMT affected your personal relationships? And that could be from dating, a partnership with somebody, as a parent, as a son or daughter, and any of your personal relationships, if this question moves you. Caleb, you had something to say.
When I was going through high school, I used to be the kid that would get picked on a lot because of my disability. And the one thing I always thought that kind of would help me out is if I could prove to them that my disability doesn't make me any different. So I turned 18 and my parents were like, we don't know what to do. So I decided to go get a tattoo on my arm. And I got 6 of them now. And my first one was actually for for CMT. And I went back to high school with it. And at the day I got back with the tattoo, I got looked at completely different. I stopped getting judged. I stopped kind of getting walked over the top of. So I felt like I had more of a chance of being normal with getting a tattoo.
I want to see the tattoo.
I got you. Kind of hard to see it, but it's right there. It's that ribbon that's right above the arrow.
I love it.
Then it's all, I had my tattoo artist make it where it looks like ripped at the ending of it, and then it says CMT right at the ending.
Oh, that's awesome.
So how when you say you were treated differently, I mean, how did people respond to you? Did they think it was cool? Like what kinds of comments did they have?
They would walk up to me and they'd be like, how's it going, crippled? Or I would go to go hang out with my buddies' friends and kind of hang out with them, and they'd be like, no, go away. We don't want to hang out with you. You walk too slow and you're just too weak to do any of the stuff we do. And my PE teachers wouldn't let me participate in much, even though I know I could, because I knew my limits. And they wouldn't let me participate because they thought I was going to hurt myself. And when I came back with a tattoo, I was allowed to go hang out with the friends. I was allowed to do more in PE because they looked at it of, if he can stand the pain of getting a tattoo, he can stand the pain of if he falls, which that's not very true, but I mean, I was okay with it at that time because I was looked like I was able to do everything that another student could do.
Sure. Peyton.
Yeah, I think in some ways it makes connection harder just because people in society, I think a lot of the time have kind of a preconceived notion of disability, kind of like we've talked about here a lot. But I think overall, I think it's made my personal relationships a lot closer and a lot stronger in a lot of ways too. I'm in college right now, and I am really lucky to have like a really great group of friends who kind of are the kind of people that, if I fall down, they're just gonna like kind of fall down with me. And so I don't know, I love that. And I think I'm really open about my disability to the people that I'm in relationships with, whether that's dating or just friends or family or whoever. And so I mean, they'll make jokes about my CMT all the time because they know that I love it. I make jokes about it. How, I can never pass a sobriety test sober, or like just other things that you kind of make fun of people about. So I think when it comes to my CMT, we have like a very kind of lighthearted relationship about it, and they really try to understand where I'm coming from and try to understand my experiences. They're not afraid to ask me questions about it. And I think overall, it's just kind of made those relationships a lot closer.
Thank you. Christina.
So when I was younger, in my 20s, I say younger then, but my CMT was prevalent, but I didn't realize it. So we would go out, and all my friends, I've had a lot of them since I was 7 or younger. So they've seen the progression. Even dating, we grew up together, our friends. But I had the lucky aspect is, oh, well, they always thought I was a klutz, so no one really thought anything different. But when I got older and my braces came into play, that would change when we go out to happy hours at bars and people want to approach you or ask you questions. And so that, I think, changes how I would interact. I found myself when I first got my braces actually hiding them. And then there was a movement, it called Embrace It. So I actually started wearing my braces with shorts and out at bars to try to engage people. And I found from myself, if I sit out with my braces out, people were actually willing to come speak with me and want to engage and know about it, especially when they see me come in with a walker, but I can maybe walk without my braces to do things. And that's allowed me to get friends that I'm older with. But I do think as maybe for myself, being an only child, the challenges become when you get older, and if you're in a part of a city where there's no transportation, or if you don't have friends around you, you can actually be more single. So making sure that doesn't happen while you're mobile and you're young, plan ahead. That's my key. Don't take what we have for today as granted, or that it's going to be the worst or the best. Just keep in the mind of those experiences, but you need to make sure that you're also planning for the future. For example, I moved with my parents to Arizona thinking I was going to take care of them. Well, guess what? I sold my house because I couldn't stay there. So they had to take care of me. So now here we are, they're in their 80s and we have to relook at life differently. So as parents, you want to, I think, keep that in mind for your children, but as your children get older, you also want to make sure that they're part of that planning and think ahead. We can't figure out our disability where it's going to go with progression, but we don't have to let it stop us. And like the gentleman said, you can work full time and you can have a great retirement. I mean, I work full time and I go to school. So I think the only limits are what we put on ourselves, and that includes our friends and our relationships. And sorry, I went on kind of long.
Every word is valuable. Thank you, Christina.
I just wanted to say, I wish I would have been a little bit more upfront with people when I was younger, even in my 20s and teens and elementary years. I think it would have empowered me a little bit more, because they did just perceive me as klutzy and, weak and, didn't want me on their teams. And I just try to reflect on that, and, looking at Caleb's tattoo, like, if that's a way to put it out there and let it be seen, because it is kind of an invisible disease for some of us. I don't wear AFOs. I've had several surgeries, but people might not see it, So I just have kind of encouraged Lily to be a little bit more upfront and advocate rather than keep it hidden. And I think that has, eliminated that need to feel ashamed or feel like you're different. I hope that has done that for her.
Dylan.
First of all, you guys are all rock stars, because the stories you guys are telling, that's all I'm hearing is just how awesome you guys are. But let's not so quickly pass by Christina talking about how she flirted with men in the bar with her braces. That's what I'm hearing. She tried to use the sympathy card. I've done it. That's why I'm married, because I use a cane and I have a very vintage style myself. And my wife used to take care of the elderly, so we are a match made in heaven. I am an older man who is 25. She took care of older men, and here we are, happy as a clam. So, Christina, I know what you're doing. Flirting with the men. But no, personal relationships, no, I understand. I think I agree with what Peyton said. I have an amazing family and a support group that supported me through this whole process. And I will say that we've learned to laugh about it. We've learned to look on the brighter side of it. My dad calls me Fumbelina. I'm cool with it. It's fine. I understand. I get it. I trip sometimes, and and my family will like, whoa, 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 you know, they'll ham it up. You know, they'll like, I make one little false move and they go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, okay, guys, calm down. It's not that big a deal. But it's all out of love. And if there's someone who is doing it maliciously, making fun of you, they're a toxic friend, just get rid of them. It's not worth your stress, not worth you thinking about it at night. Just be happy of who you are. And the people that accept you for that, stay with them. That's all I have to say.
Dylan, has that always been that way for you, or has it been a process that you've had to learn and appreciate?
I think with all things, it's a process, but I will say that I don't think I've ever really had anyone to come at me maliciously and try to hurt my feelings because of my condition and my disease. And I thank God for that. I think, you know, that I do have a good support system, and even strangers that may not fully understand, they've never been out to hurt me. And if you have dealt with that, I sincerely apologize. No one should go through that. No one should feel lesser because of something they go through. Because CMT, it's what I go through. It's my CMT is someone else's mole that they want to hide up with makeup. You know, it's that little thing that they wish they could change, but they're stuck with it. And that's fine. You just got to learn to live with it. You've got to learn to laugh about it and just make it you, make it your own. Just stay happy. That's all I got to say.
I'm taking that in, Dylan. I think we all are. That is just really wonderful, wonderful advice. But I also appreciate that it, as you say, right, it is a process, and it is maybe a lifetime goal for many. And one that I wonder if sometimes things kind of go in cycles too, right? You have your good days and your bad days. As far as relationships, what about professional relationships? What about the world of work and employment? Would any of you have any feedback on what that's been like in terms of work opportunities and work relationships specifically? Navigating that world. Caleb.
So Qdoba is my third job. I worked at Taco Bell for a while, and I didn't like that job just because there was a lot on my feet. My feet got very tired very quickly. I ended up going to a gas station job because it was more enclosed and a little more not so walking around, working, lifting heavy things, standing in one place, kind of. I was able to sit down. And I enjoyed that job, except I think the biggest problem I ran into with that job was nobody understood. I tried to explain to them why I can't do something, but they wouldn't follow along. They wouldn't understand why I have a problem with it. And I'd do my best to explain, and they wouldn't follow along. So I ended up leaving that job for my current job. And I love this job. You know, if I need to sit down, I say, hey, can I sit down for a minute? They say, absolutely. I mean, they don't look at me different there because I struggle with some things they don't struggle with.
Graduating, making that transition from high school to college, I think just looking back, there were some really important resources that my family did take advantage of, which was the Department of Vocational Rehab, DVR. I'm not sure if any of you also use those services in your state, but it was employment counseling. They actually helped me with finding some financial support. Some way they helped me find a bicycle so I wouldn't have to walk back and forth between classes. And the one thing I wish I would have thought of more when I worked with DVR was, because my parents were very much, they wanted all of their kids to do what they wanted to do, you know, do what makes you happy, which I appreciate. But I didn't give a lot of thought to what are jobs where I'd be on my feet all day. What are jobs that maybe I would need more fine motor skill ability. So I became a sign language interpreter. And I've had to go back to school and kind of change my path a little bit just because of the fine motor weakness that I'm starting to have. And so I guess definitely like thinking about work, and you want your kids to be, obviously I want Lily to do whatever she wants to do, and she can do whatever she wants to do, but using resources like DVR to make sure maybe there's some accommodations and thought behind, like, where can you work? Are there jobs where maybe they could help get some of those accommodations in place? If I'm interpreting, can I somehow ensure that I have a chair to sit in so I'm not standing for 2 hours or whatever for a presentation? So definitely like thinking about, am I going to be on my feet? Am I going to need to use my hands? Those are things that I wish I would have paid more attention to when I picked my career choice, although I still love interpreting, but definitely it was a struggle towards the end of my years doing that.
Christina?
So I think it's a twofold answer. If your disease, because sometimes with CMT, it can progress, so your best laid plans don't always work for your career. But if you know what your current situation is, or maybe where you think it'll be in the next 4 to 5 years, you can make some pivots. I was very fortunate when I was younger. I worked at Mervyn, so on your feet all day. Never understood why it didn't work, but I went to school and they actually had counselors that you could take these tests, and they didn't just do your mental, but they did your physical aptitude. So I sort of kind of got pushed into accounting. And what's kind of nice about that, even though it is using technically a pen, depending on if you're a small or big business, but with technology, you can get adaptive software, and they can do that for engineering and accounting and mathematics. So if you're also looking at technology, when you're looking at your pathway and your passion and what you want to do, if you try to integrate all of that and maybe take the time when you're in high school to talk to a counselor for college, and also look at the colleges that will prepare you, that have a really good disability program. I go to one now that they make special accommodations for tests, for exams. In case I'm working too much and I can't do that test, I get an extra hour. So there are ways to do everything and be successful and find your happiness in your pathway in your job. And it's a personal choice also if you want to share that with your employer. I've read both good and bad about making them aware of your accommodations and your need. I'm actually very fortunate. I work for a company. I walked in quote unquote normal, and I degraded a little bit with CMT. So depending on the day, I needed a wheelchair or a walker. But even with COVID, they're very helpful to work from home or come in, or if I can't get transportations. And also looking at that, when you're looking at a company, as you're going to maybe look for a career, look at what they do for their community. Do they volunteer? Do they have volunteer hours? Because if they're willing to do that for the community, who's to say they're not willing to do that for an employee as well? So that's just some ideas there.
Good points. Becky.
We haven't obviously gotten that far with Braden yet, and my symptoms didn't come on until later. But something that I did learn from one of the family groups that we had here in Louisville, there was a gentleman who, I forget what his career specialty was, but he applied for the Army as a civilian for the Army. And they said that because not a lot of people with disabilities apply to the Army or Special Forces or whatever, that they bent over backwards for him to make sure that he was able to work at their facility. Like they have him as an assistant that would come and help him get from his car to the building and make sure that he had everything that he needed. So sometimes I think the least likely places you would think that we're gonna to help you are the ones that you might look at when you're looking for a job. I know with him, he wants to be an attorney, so we'll see where that takes us.
I think you have people in the audience who would already hire you, Brayden. The next question has to do with mental health, and I know some of you have touched upon this already. It was sort of woven into some of the other questions, but if there's anything else you'd like to share in terms of what your experience is in dealing with mental health concerns, burnout, stress, etc. Anything in particular that helps as a coping resource, supports, anything you would advise? Will?
So for me, the best way that I handle sort of like burnout or stress is talk to someone. I mean, it's a point that I think is not shared enough. I mean, talking to people, especially someone else who may understand it better. Like one of the people I go to talk is my mom, because she has the same thing that I have, and I know she's gone through those things, and it helps so much because it's just awesome to have someone who can lend an ear, who understands what you're saying, because some people, they will hear what you're saying, but they have no way of understanding it. But always having someone to kind of be there and to understand what you're saying and know what you're going through, it really helps.
Thank you, Will. Peyton.
Yeah, I guess a few different things. I think I completely agree with Will, for sure. I think being able to just talk to other people who just get it is so powerful and so cathartic and just great. I also think that just trying to kind of have a balanced perspective around CMT as well, to where I am acknowledging the bad and, you know, allowing myself to feel frustrated or sad or however I feel that day, but then also kind of validating that and being okay with that, but then also kind of focusing on the good. And, you know, there's so many things that I'm grateful for, you know, regarding my CMT and just regarding everything else in my life too. So I think being able to kind of practice that gratitude and that, you know, kind of looking towards the future is really helpful for me. I'm a little bit biased though, because that's my like future career is clinical psychology. So I love that kind of stuff.
Melissa.
I am very fortunate that we have several members of our family and extended family with CMT, aunts, uncles, cousins, my dad, my siblings. So we do have that like family resource, which is so great and so immediate. But within that family circle, all of our CMT looks very different, right? So I think someone else was Rebecca and Brayden, like for example, you know, Lily has some needs that I didn't have as a kid. So I don't like to assume that I can always connect with her and what she's going through. I still like really value like her own experience and how she's managing it. But mental health, like we have providers we see every week for our mental health. And that's just how it has been since she was little and since I was a teenager. We also are very connected with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. She is an ambassador for Southeast Wisconsin. So we do a lot of the community events. We do a lot of family programming and get-togethers and fundraisers and all of that. And we also recently reached out to the CMTA Association, which has a youth program, which has been amazing. She's actually in virtual camp this week. So she was going to check, she has the tent set up in the room and she's gonna go check in with her counselor real quick because they have an activity going on. But, you know, just making those connections. So that's really been value to our mental health support.
Becky, did you have something?
Yeah, I think with Braden, I guess because he was diagnosed so young, and we did, as soon as he was diagnosed and we found out that it was one of the diseases with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, we jumped head first. You know, he was the state ambassador. We kept busy. We kept doing things. And it's, I think one of his big things is he likes to educate people. My husband still currently works as a paramedic firefighter for one of the fire departments here in Louisville. Braden has a PowerPoint presentation. He usually he goes in and does in-services and explains what CMT is and how it affects people. But with Nathaniel, again, we were right after his diagnosis. We were at a MDA speaking engagement, and we mentioned that Nate had it, and he broke down and it really bothered him. And the representative that was working for the MDA at the time, she actually put us in contact. She saw it, and she doesn't work for the MDA anymore, but she still stays in contact with Nate, and put us in contact with a psychologist for him to talk to. And then we kind of he went to an MDA summer camp, and he became friends with a young man down in Chattanooga, and that connection with Nate has helped him a whole lot. Now, he still won't talk about it to a lot of people, but when he sees other people and the things that they have to go through, he's able to count his blessings and realize that, you know, it could always be worse. But so I think being involved in keeping them and us in communication with other people with CMT, and just finding our niche on whatever makes us happy or helps us deal with it has been a huge thing, because it's different for everybody.
Thank you. If I could just share the poll results. Thank you to our audience for giving your own answers here. So the first, for the question, how do you handle mental health concerns? The winner is engaging in physical activities, 67%, followed by 48% practice relaxation techniques, 48% talk to a spiritual resource, then 29% participate in a support group, 24% talk to a professional counselor or therapist. I'm 57%, sorry, I went out of order here. 57% partake in a hobby, travel, or take a class. Engage in other things, as you're saying, Becky. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to, again, maybe another very practical question in terms of life hacks, right? Do any of you have any advice in your own experience regarding anything you would advise anybody on practical matters, from navigating things like airports, transportation, restaurants, I know we touched upon adaptive equipment a little bit, but really anything that you would consider a life hack, something that you have experienced and tweaked, and you know, this is your thing and how you do it. Dylan.
I was waiting. I wanted to see what other people had to say. So just practically, I mean, I do have the old-fashioned button hook, that little mechanism in case people don't understand what I'm talking about. It's a little device for people who maybe have arthritis or trouble using their hands. It will go one loop in on your shirt, pull that button through, and you just buttoned your shirt. Fantastic. Put the plug in there for you. Go get one today. The other thing is I suggest go get a motorized scooter if you do have trouble walking. It was a big investment for my wife and I because we love to take trips, which is one of those little things to keep your mind going. We take trips a lot. And so having to rent them was not cost efficient. And so we're like, let's just pay for one. Let's get one. So we've got a nice little guy. He's compactable. He like folds up, and we take it everywhere we go. So I go to Disney World and I'm on my little scooter, beep, beep, and going through the crowds of all the people. By the way, go on your motorized scooter because they'll take you through all those little secret ways and you can get in front of the line. Don't tell them I said that. But no, you really do. You can do that kind of stuff. You get the little fast passes and stuff. My mother-in-law calls me her meal ticket because she gets to get on the rides first with me. I love my mother-in-law. She's a dear soul. But yeah, a scooter, the button hook, just little things. If you have trouble with something, more than likely someone also has that issue. And Amazon is your friend. Sign up for Amazon Prime. Get that stuff sent to you within a day. Hey, bing, bang, boom. Oh, and also, I'd just like to say, this is kind of irrelevant, but Caleb works at Qdoba, and I want Caleb and only Caleb to make my burrito because as someone with CMT, he's going to be super careful and not drop my guacamole. I just know that he is going to take the most precious care of my burrito. So only Caleb do I want touching my stuff at Qdoba, and I'm done with that.
Shameless plug for Amazon, and I definitely have a company that we use often for shoes because that is the nightmare of AFOs and CMT. We use Zappos.com. I just don't pay attention to how much I'm spending. We get a big, huge box of shoes at the door that we try every single one on until we find the Cinderella slipper and then ship everything back. Shoe shopping and going to stores is just, we've left in tears. Yeah, it's just not good. And
it takes like 5 hours to find like one pair of shoes that will fit. Yeah.
We recently did go to a store, so now I have to remind myself of Zappos, and I'm sure there's other shoe delivery, but that seems to be the one that if we've ever had a problem, we had one time where like the shoe kind of fell apart from the AFO. They told us to keep them, don't worry about sending them back, and bought us a new pair. So shameless plug, but yeah, shoe shopping, I remember doing that for prom, for homecoming. I would say to all those girls out there, oh yeah, Billy shoes, we've tried, someone said in the chat, we've tried those as well. We have a new pair that didn't work. It just depends on the size of your AFO. Looking back, I wish I wouldn't have cared so much about what shoes I was wearing on my feet. I would have saved myself from a lot of rolled ankles and a lot of pain. And as a girl, you want your feet to look good and pretty, but you got to be comfy. So that's my 2 cents about shoe shopping nightmares.
Peyton.
Yeah, a couple things. So one, I'm going to jump on the Amazon wagon because they are wonderful. I recently started working in a research lab, and I was in there by myself for a few weeks because of COVID. And the first time that I went to go open the door, I couldn't get it unlocked because the lock was so, the key was just so hard to turn, and I just couldn't do it. So I got on Amazon and ordered a little key assist thing that just kind of goes on your key and makes it easier to twist. Problem solved. It's wonderful. Would highly recommend. The other thing is, like all of you guys were mentioning, I also have trouble opening bottles and jars. So I ordered a couple little grips from Amazon too, and they're just I don't even know if they're made out of rubber, I guess. And you can just twist the bottle and it makes it so much easier. So I love those too. And then the other thing that I was thinking of is more of, I kind of love shoes, like you were saying, which is really just a bad combo with CMT. And I've always wanted to wear sandals. That was like a big thing. And I could never figure out how to get them on with my AFOs. And so my grandma and I actually took on the project last year as like a COVID project and figured out how to get we got an insert that like matched the bottom of the sandal and like glued down the toe area kind of like on the outside. And it created like a little block so I can like slide my AFO in, and it's got like a little insert on the top of it. And it works beautifully. So if there's anything that you guys are wanting to do, it's probably out there. But if it's not, you can always figure out a way to do it too. So.
Thank you. Christina.
Going back to the Zappos, thank you for reminding me, Melissa. I'm on a panel there, and they recently came out where if your feet are two different sizes, you can buy just one size of that shoe. So I don't know for many of you, but growing up, I had one foot that was literally 2.5 sizes different. So my parents had to buy 2 pairs of shoes. So until this came along, unless you went to Nordstrom's, who gave you 25% off on the second pair, if it's more than 1.5 sizes, and Macy's will do that as well. They will help you. And then the other thing on the shoes, with the AFOs, like Melissa was saying, if you're really wide, like I am a 6E, but I have to wear a men's 12, which there's no options other than tennis shoes. But I use New Balance. And if you can find a locally owned store, they will also give you a discount. I get 25% off 3 times a year. So that way I can save that money for my next pair of shoes. And then also there's a website called Embrace It. And then there's one from Lanny. Isabel, Israeli, she has CMT as well, and she has lots of life hacks. So like the other panelists are saying, if you search for it, you will find it. And then she also has, besides her website, she also has links to clothes that are adaptive and shoes. And like there's a thing you can put on your tennis shoes that will actually lace up your shoes for you if you have certain kinds of shoes. Things I've never seen of that come from the UK. That sometimes a one-stop shop might be helpful for people as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I've had amazing luck with Nike Fly-Ease that they're hard to get. Like, so I have the older model. The new ones are pretty hard to get because a lot of people are buying them up. But if you like, I was stuck with, I think for 2 or 3 shoes in a row, I got the same exact shoe because I knew they worked. But with these, I'm able to get basketball shoes. I love playing wheelchair basketball and watching basketball. So I've always wanted to be able to wear a basketball shoe, and it worked perfectly with my I have the carbon fiber drop foot braces.
And then we also use Tommy Hilfiger. They have a adaptive clothing line. So your shirt will look like it's a button down, but it's actually magnetic. And the pants look like they're zippers, but they're Velcro. So they work really nice.
Target and Land's End also carry that adaptive line just for uniforms if you need them too. They have school uniforms.
Some great concrete tips. Thank you, everybody. Just moving on, I would ask this of the parents, but also any of you panelists looking back in your own experience, if you have anything specific to advise about navigating IEPs in school. I know we talked a little bit about school dynamics, but specifically that concrete issue, right? The IEP, the 504 plan.
I answer this one.
Yes, Caleb.
the biggest problem me and my mom had with mine is we didn't bring information about my disability for a while, so they all kind of thought it was a story and just kind of not the truth. So we brought paperwork, doctor's notes, evidence, like proof, just a bunch of stuff about my disability. And my teachers were there, my principals were there, and the head principal was there, and me and him were very, very close. And we handed out these little pamphlets about CMT. And the teachers didn't want to read it. They just sat there and looked at it. The principal looks at him and says, you either read that or I'm going to pull him out of your class and we're going to have a fun talk.
I would say just as a special education teacher myself, Lily started with an IEP when she was 3 because they did find her CMT to impact her educational outcomes due to fatigue. But then moving to her next school, they dismissed PT, they dismissed OT, they dismissed adaptive gym, and they said it no longer affects her education. So she needs to move to a 504 plan. And at the time, I didn't quite know how to handle that meeting. These were my coworkers because I did work at that school. It was very important for me to bring an advocate. I would just, because when you were in those meetings as a parent, regardless of the experience I have being a special education teacher, it is very intimidating. It's usually, like Caleb said, a very large group of people. So I think just bringing someone in from the outside, if you can get them, someone from MDA, someone from CMTA, if you can get them on the phone, those are great resources. But also just to know that an IEP is a working document. It can be opened at any time. It can be reviewed at any time. As a parent, you have a right to ask for a meeting whenever you feel like it. You have the right to ask for changes whenever you feel like it. It is not something that's just solid and doesn't need to change. You know, so just being mindful of that. And also that a 504 plan, even though you might not hear about those as often, those are still excellent documents and serve the same purpose for students who may not have that, you know, impact from their CMT in an educational learning way, or access to the curriculum, or access to what their peers are doing. So 504 has worked fine for Lily in public school setting. And then when we moved to private, I carried that 504 and handed it right to the private school and just said, this is what we had. If you have any questions, let's talk. But I think you do need to be on top of it. You know, right now it's August and I'm already thinking, oh, I need to reach out like soon this week to her new teachers and to the principal and talk to that team and ask them, okay, are we all set? Do we have something in place for gym? Is the elevator working? You know, things like that. You just don't, you can't assume that they're going to have it all figured out. So you do have to be that mama bear, like Rebecca was saying at times, and it's a slippery slope because you don't want people to look at your kid any different, treat your kid any different in a negative way because you are being an advocate for your child. So that's what I have to say about schools.
Thank you. So really being armed with information. Right, Caleb and Melissa, thank you. Dylan.
I had a 504 plan in high school. And so mine is more, which I agree with everything that Melissa and Caleb said, especially about the whole awareness. You have to let them know, one, for legal reasons, as anyone would, but also because they really do care. If you show your plan, your condition, if you show them what you need, your school really does care. And so what I want to point out is just for the person who does have CMT and you're the one going through an IEP or a 504 plan, it's okay. You are okay. And you're going to have to put that pride aside, and you're going to have to realize that people are just trying to help you. Even though I didn't want people holding my tray, because I'm like, I can do this. I can hold a cafeteria tray. Nowadays, I wish someone would just grab the plate for me. Goodness gracious. It's a life. But it's okay. It's okay. They would let me out of class, and I thought that was silly. I'm like, oh, I can just walk with everybody else. I'm not going to be able to walk with my friends if I walk with, you know, but they were trying to protect me. We don't want you getting ran over. We don't want anyone, you know, bumping into you, you falling over. They care about you. Let people care about you and let people take care of you. You're okay. It's okay.
Thank you, Becky.
And the MDA does have some great literature online to help. I remember pulling PowerPoints and like guides for schools. So, you know, again, the information's out there. And then I know it was either the MDA or CMTA had some really helpful information on navigating 504s and IEPs.
Thank you. Becky, did you have something as well?
I was gonna touch on that. We took information from the MDA to school, and when he was in elementary school, they were anxious to get information because there's explaining it, and then there's physically having something to hold that they can refer to, and the information that the MDA provided us helped a whole lot. I think going into middle school, the school that he's at now is great. When he was in 6th grade, we tried to go to a different middle school because they have a really good gifted and talented program there. And it's also one of the, it's like a middle school for kids with physical disabilities here in Louisville. And with CMT, it's a little different because if he was, with him being in a wheelchair, they tried to bulk him into a group with kids with cognitive disabilities. So it was hard for him at that school because they wanted to, he got pulled out of class early. Every class, somebody came to get him early to take him to the next class. He would be pulled out of class early for to go to lunch, and then he wouldn't have anybody to sit with because he was there at a different time. And it was very that school was very hard, and it was affecting his education because he was missing so much class because they were overly cautious about getting him to places where he needed to be, and they did it in groups. So it wasn't just one kid in a wheelchair. It would be him and like 3 or 4 other kids in a wheelchair that they would all gather up at one time and take them places. So we found that it was better for him with his disability to not be bulked with the kids with cognitive disabilities, because it was affecting his ability to work in the class, because he was in a gifted and talented program. He needed that extra time in the classroom because he was missing important things. So when we pulled him out to our neighborhood school, where the kids that he all went to elementary school with was there, some of the teachers were there, the bus driver, all these people that he was associated with, that helped a whole lot. So now with his IEP, the biggest thing right now is the time. It allows him extra time for taking tests. They all have iPads now, but before all the kids got iPads at his school, he had one that allowed him to do his work on that. So because it takes so much time for him to write, and that one thing that they did in elementary school before the iPad, they gave him a scribe, and it was holding back his education so much without one that the scribe actually showed us that they had him write a story, and he wrote it, and it was like a paragraph. she had him tell the story to her for her to scribe, and you got 2 pages of information out of him. So it was huge getting a scribe or an iPad, because his hands would fatigue and he would have so much pain. So he wasn't writing what he was capable of because it was hurting. So I think that's one thing with the IEP that is the huge part for him, is the extra time and making sure that they give him what he needs to perform the best he can.
Thank you. Thank you, Becky. So speaking of extra time, I'm really struggling here because I have so many more questions for you. And I can't believe we've been doing this for almost 2 hours. All of your answers and your sharing have been so rich. I'm gonna leap to the last question. And I know we've already touched upon it, and it's come out in various ways, but I would really just love to throw it out there in this way. What gives you hope? What gives you strength? What gives you the sense of resilience that you've all demonstrated and shared today? What is that for you? Lily.
Well, for me, hope comes in like different ways. So I I know that doctors are working on a cure for CMT, or like, isn't that right? Some need to like research, and that definitely gives me hope that this generation and the next generation it's going to be a lot easier for people to adapt with CMT. And like comparing from when my mom was little and how hard it was for her fitting in and stuff, to now it's different. And also I don't know, just certain accomplishments, like I draw a lot and animate, that with CMT it's harder for me, and people are like, wow, how did you do that? And it just makes me feel good inside and gives me hope that I am capable of a lot more than people like think that people with CMT can do, you know? Yeah.
Thank you, Lily.
You're awesome.
I add on something.
Hey, Caleb, share.
I think what makes me strong is like when I go to work during the day and I make somebody's food and I do really good at it, and then my bosses will look at me and they'll be like, you did a great job with that, and they'll compliment me on how I did with something that I struggle with a lot, but I still do it. And I don't know, it makes me feel kind of good on the inside. It makes me just want to get up and do it again and again and again.
Thank you, Caleb. Will, I think you had your hand next.
Yeah, so for me, kind of what gives me hope and what gives me my resilience is not only my belief in my personal belief in the power of religion, but also knowing that I personally am spreading the word about CMT and I am helping people to understand it, because the first step to being in a society where more people accept people with disabilities as not seeing them different but seeing them as equals, the first step to that is letting everyone know about it and giving them a chance to understand our side.
Thank you, Will. Peyton, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you guys, and I think also just seeing like all of the good people in the world who are so like willing to help me out and stuff if I'm in trouble. Just seeing like the kindness in people. One recent example, I decided that I wanted to do a half marathon a couple years ago. And so I trained for it and I walked it, and it took me a little bit longer than like most people took for the marathon. And I think everybody else had finished about a half hour before I did. But like a ton of people just like stuck around at the finish line to like just be there and like congratulate me, and it was just a really cool thing. So I think that's a big example, but you know, I see stuff like that every single day, and people's willingness and like want to help, and you know, a growing acceptance hopefully for disability in society. So I think those kind of things are things that make me really excited for the future and give me a lot of hope too. So.
Thank you, Peyton.
I think one of the many things that gives me like hope is like knowing all this research is going into CMT with like them recently finding out like one of the reason for CMT, and that gives me hope that maybe one day that they'll be able to use that and make something that can hopefully stop the progression or make it better or completely make people better. And like knowing because my oldest brother is having a kid, that there's a chance that the kid will have CMT, that like, and knowing all this like opportunities and research is going into it helps me like, and it hopefully if he does will help my brother, because like I can imagine how, like I know how hard it was for my other brother getting diagnosed. I can't imagine how hard it'd be to have like your kid get diagnosed. I think with that hope and being able to spread stuff like that can help people, and also like technology. I'm a huge geek and nerd, so I love researching technology, and that really helps me give me hope, because like one day a lot of these challenges won't be a challenge, because technology will be able to in some way be able to help, like during COVID with one of the few good things was how much like video calls and stuff like that happened. It helps people with like disabilities be able to here in the future be able to work at home and not have to worry about some of those challenges that you get from working in the workplace.
I think my big thing for hope is the kids that are wanting answers and are looking for it and finding ways to find it. The fact that there's so many young people in here today says something that people aren't just gonna take it and say, yep, this is what it is. We want to find a cure. So I think that's my hope, is all the young folk that are looking for answers and wanting a cure.
Dylan.
Not the last one, am I? I hope not. I didn't want to go last. I will say, just I want to echo what everyone has already said, is just for one, agreeing with Will, faith in my religion, there's hope there. Agreeing with Peyton, faith in humanity, that there are people who do care, so surround yourself with those people. And then of course what everyone else is saying, faith in the doctors, the MDA research that's going forth, and people dedicated and resilient to find help and to find a cure. So I have hope in all these aspects, because it all comes down to unity. And it all comes down to just all of us, the a CMT people, CMT gang, who are with each other, backing each other up, and we're just here for it, and we're just living life, because we realize that, no disrespect to people who have serious chronic illnesses and detrimental diseases, but what we go through is not life ending, but it is life altering. And as long as we can alter with it and just live life and be happy and just keep moving forward, we're gonna be okay. So hope for it all.
Thank you. And last but not least, Christina.
Sorry, Dylan, I saved that for you.
Oh, please, thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I think hope, as everybody has said, really in research, like I said, I was diagnosed at 45. Okay, so it's been about 10 years, somewhere in there. But there have been actually 3 or 4 serious organizations that have sprouted up that are all doing research specifically for CMT. The MDA gives, I think it was 30 grants within every year. Millions on CMT are actually being spent, and we actually have fruit of that with the different pharmacies actually doing clinical trials that we can sign up for now, if you're able to, which not only supports us now and going forward, but those who are coming behind us. I think the young people pressing for answers and not taking the word no, and having the ability to actually use the internet and be technical savvy and enlighten their doctors, where some of us may have not had that courage. I think that's fabulous. And I think just talking about it, because the more we talk about it, the more people will know about it. I can remember my first appointment when I was literally, I think 6, and they told my mom, "You're gonna make her neurotic, there's nothing wrong." Well, guess what? They were wrong. So you have to speak up and you have to challenge, because if you can't challenge, we can't make it better for our community. And we also have to remember, just like other diseases, there are a variety of CMTs, and some don't impact everyone the same way. So just because we may focus on one research, because it's the majority, with that subset learning, we can help more, and to basically, try to help enlighten as well as drive the fundraising, because if we're not our own advocates, who will be? That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. How to thank you all? Did I leave anyone out in that last question? No, I think we got everybody. I really don't know how to thank you. I am sincerely humbled in your presence. You are amazing, and I speak not just for myself, but I know for everyone in the audience who has posted their encouraging comments. And we've touched upon so much, and like I said, there's so much more that we could talk about, but it's been 2 hours and you all need your rest. We are just so grateful to you for sharing your stories with such courage. And I would acknowledge, really the gift of vulnerability. We've touched upon issues that, we speak of grief and trauma and challenges, but you've also spoken of beauty and goodness and gratitude, and we are all grateful. And I also thank our audience. You've also been wonderfully present with your comments and your own experience and suggestions and pieces of advice, from the practical to the broader. So thank you, and thank you for allowing me to do this with you and journey on. I'm going to turn this over to Nicole for some wrap-up comments.
Well, I too want to echo what Christine said. I want to thank all of you for having the open and honest discussion about all of these topics. And I do know that a lot of this information that was shared definitely resonated with a lot of our audience. So thank you to everybody for your time this afternoon and this evening. And I know it's always not easy, especially hopping on a virtual platform like this and talking about very personal things. So thank you very much. I do want to let folks know if they do have any questions about what they heard today, to please, you can email me at the MDA Engage email that you see on the screen. And I also want to remind everyone that we did record this, so it'll be available in a couple weeks, and I will let everyone know when it is ready for viewing. So just note that if you know someone who missed it, don't fret, we did record it. I will also be sending out a survey about what you heard today. If you want to take that survey now, you can click on the QR code and it will direct you to that site. Otherwise, I will be emailing it. And then I also put those 2 links on the screen if you want to talk to more CMT families that are part of our MDA program. You can email connections at MDA USA to get connected with other folks. And if you are in the audience listening and you're not affiliated with MDA, please join us. We would love to have you join our organization, and you can go to that website and join us. So Christine and panelists, thank you very much for your time tonight, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you.